Stephen, what do you think, again, for you as a sleeper issue? Again, maybe something that you hear amongst the mates but you don't see on the front page?
Yeah, look, I think Bronwyn's made a good point about superannuation. The point she's missed is probably the thing that continues to bedevil Peter Dutton is that Trump has trashed everybody's superannuation. People are regularly in the newspapers saying, I'm $50,000 worse off because of Donald Trump's policies that he's been pursuing. I mean, the great irony of this campaign is, for those who are Donald Trump fans, they're watching Donald Trump destroy their boy Peter Dutton in this election. So I think the sleeper issue is the impact of an American election. Probably the first time in my memory where an American politician has so dominated the discourse underneath the actual policy issues. I mean, whether it's defence today, whether it's attacking our PBS system, whether it's threatening attacks on our cultural protections. There's just this strata of issues that Donald Trump is impacting on in this election.
Interesting here, where that conversation and in and around the Trump of things, we've debated many of those things, and again, interesting to hear you both, and good on you both for not firing up at each other when you were making your points here. I like it. It's a sleeper issue. It's worth going through. Now, everyone who is a partisan, everyone who pays attention gets really frustrated during elections because there's a lie that won't die, right? There'll be a lie that's been said by one side for a long time, or it's one that may be being particularly weaponised. And we saw, say, the Medicare nonsense a couple of years ago, the Medicare nonsense that's happening now. But I want to ask you both, as veterans who've seen it all, right? And I'll start with you first, Stephen. Why are the lies winning at this election? I mean, put simply, I could go on a whole screed about the Prime Minister and Medicare, but it does feel like that BS is floating to the top a lot easier than it did in previous elections.
Yeah, look, I mean, health has always been a Labor strength. It hasn't always won us elections, but it's a core value. And Dutton, unfortunately for him, has some history in this portfolio. But the one that continues to make me shake my head is the issue around the costing of the nuclear reactors. And Labor is getting away with using, I think, the Climate Council's figure of up to $600 million worth of costs. And Peter Dutton has, to the best of my knowledge, refused to engage in that debate. Like, there is no costing. The only person I've seen write about it is Phil Corey in a recent Financial Review, where he quoted a number. But why isn't Peter Dutton putting to bed the $600 million number? I'm just flabbergasted he's allowed this to run and hurt him as much as it has. Because once he won't combat that, then Labor says, well, what are your cuts? What are your cuts? What are your cuts? How are you paying for this? And that just becomes an ongoing cycle. So he's had the chance to put this to bed and just continues to avoid the subject. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, he did take it on in the debate.
Yes, he did.
And effectively. And this smarty pants...
We've got 10 days to go, Bronwyn. 10 days to go. Why did it take this long?
Well, there has been rebuttal before, but it just is repeated by the media that back the Labor government. That's the unfortunate part. But there are so many lies, Stephen. It strikes me that the election is a fake election. I mean, right down to even Clive Palmer with his hacking and being a Conservative and then preferencing against Conservatives. The Prime Minister coming out today and saying, oh, I don't know who's number 2 on my ticket. I didn't know I was preferencing a Green who's from the anti-Semitic party. What rubbish. The first thing you do when you're a candidate is look where you are on the ballot paper. You know particularly well where it is. And this coming out and professing to be the great Catholic when he wouldn't even swear on the Bible to get sworn in as Prime Minister. There are just so many things. But back to that question of I call them the Smarty Pants Energy Council, because they're just a lobby group. And that information has been out there, but it is being repeated, the $600 million, again and again in the media, no matter how anybody refutes it. So there is so much about it where lies have just been allowed to come through and dominate the election.
But also, isn't it a thing where, and both of you, okay, when you're being verbaled by your political opponent, you know how to fight back, right? But organisationally, there doesn't seem to be the fight back, right? And the joy of this and much of its technologies and the ability to get the message out is that it doesn't cost $1 for you to be able to make something and to put it out. Yes, it costs you $1 to take it outside of your own sphere, but again, is this a fault of the Liberals where, you know, they've let the Prime Minister go on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks about Medicare, and it's good. 1 million people saw in that debate the pushback. 1 million people the week before had seen the failure to explain on power prices. That's not insignificant. Maybe it's just my algorithm, but I just don't see it. Do you?
Well, I would like to see a cut-through message that says, we'll keep on the lights, we'll reduce fuel costs, and there'll be no capital gains tax on the family home. Because all those things are what really matter to people. And if this government gets back, then in its own right or with the Greens, the future of people's assets are seriously at risk.
Well, but also, I mean, you know, you must be surprised, Stephen, that, you know, when one of the sort of multifaceted ways that this election's being run, and for all of the sort of Trump talk, the one who's flooding the zone by debating the budget 10 years ago and this thing 14 years ago and this thing 25 years from now is your bloke in all of this, right? But that said, see, the knowing smile, the transcript will never be that he agreed. All right, now, he knows how to play the game, right? But again, your capacity the capacity to fight back. It is surprising to me how the pushback is not where I think it should be.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, Paul. It's that pushback that is, or lack of pushback, that has really caused me to shake my head. I mean, let me give you an example that I lived through. So, if you remember, I said the NBN was going to cost $43 billion to build. Malcolm Turnbull, after he became the Shadow Communications Minister, leaked a story to the Daily Telegraph. The entire front page of the Daily Telegraph was Labor's plan to cost $93 billion. And no, I spent week after week arguing about it, you know, picking through the various assumptions. And one of Turnbull's staffers, at one of the times you bump into each other, just said, oh, we love the fact we're spending so much time fighting this number. It took us half an hour to literally add up these 5 numbers based on these 5 assumptions and just added them all up collectively and came up with $93 billion. And yet you're spending all your time arguing about it. So even when you push back, a number can be completely created in the public's mind that has no basis in truth and fact at all. So I lived through one of those circumstances. All you can do is keep arguing, keep making the points, but sometimes, you know, you're not always able to. But to the point you're making, I don't see Dutton, I don't see Ted O'Brien. I mean, the team around Dutton is soft. It's underprepared. It's not up to being a government. There's some good players, but it's not a premiership winning team.
Stephen, when you're talking about ministers underprepared, even you can't support Bowen. I mean, he is an absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. And he was done like a dinner in that debate. When he
that's your perspective. I don't agree with any of that. Bowen is very, very well prepared. You might not agree with him. You might not like the direction he's going, but you can't say he is not prepared for the argument.
He makes it up. He just makes it up.
Well, yeah.
As I said, this is a fake election. Yeah. Everything's made up.
Well, OK, so let's get to the early vote. Channel 9 says that it's 1 million. We have to wait, obviously, 24 hours to see what the previous 24 hours were. The numbers out of day one was over 500,000. The expectation, something similar today. And this is something that we all know people vote early, but I sort of, you could smell in the wind that there were people who were going to make the most of these 3 days in between public holidays. If they had time, they're going to go off and vote. This also underlines a point that I've been talking about just in terms of political tactics, right? And again, I haven't played the game, I've only watched it, all right? And I know that automatically means some will disqualify, but I watched it, okay, right? Count those grains of sand, all right? But it does seem to me that this is why Albanese and the people around him who basically have been running an election campaign since January versus the let's wait till it's officially called have been slightly in a better position to this moment, right? Obviously, votes have started to come in and, of course, another long weekend. And then, of course, we are into that final week. Reminder, Peter Dutton here in the Man Cave. Ask him anything from anywhere in the country. Send the email pubtest@skynews.com.au. Only got a couple of days to put this together. That's why I'm plug tonight. But what does the early vote mean to you, Bronwyn?
Well, traditionally, an early vote, when people are queuing up to vote, means they've made up their mind and they want to change. That's normally what it means. But you've got to factor in this time, this long holiday period. And people are, all right, Easter's passed, but they're now going into the Anzac Day long weekend, and they say, oh, we'll go and vote now. So there's an unknown quantity in there about what it's actually saying. So I just think that there needs to be a whole rethink about this early voting period. When I used to sit on the committee that used to examine the past election and look at it, there was a definite mindset by the AEC to move away from the concept of polling day to a polling period.
Yes.
And the longer it was, the better they liked it. Whether it made it easier for them, I don't know. But this was certainly something that was being pushed by the AEC itself.
And to me, look, it makes sense in countries like Indonesia, where it's hundreds of millions of people and multiple islands. It makes sense in India, where it's 1 billion people and there's an awful lot of area to cover. It doesn't quite make sense here in Australia, but I advocate, if you've got a view, go and vote tomorrow, and in my view, change the government. Stephen, what does the early vote say to you?
I'm of the same vintage of Bronwyn almost. And if people are queued up at 8 o'clock in the morning on the Saturday, it usually means they're turning up early because they want to vote for change. So I absolutely agree from experience over 20, 30 years between Bronwyn and myself, that's what it's meant. However, the change in the criteria, which allows people to vote, has allowed people freedom. And I think people are voting with their feet, and it'd be a stupid politician that says, no, we're only going to let you vote in exceptional circumstances and on the Saturday. I think people have grown comfortable with it. The people who are uncomfortable with it are politicians and, frankly, the media, because all of the focus can't be in those last 3 weeks where you can pull some rabbit out of the hat. You can make some story up that runs for 4 days. If you wait that long to release your policies or your dirty tricks, then they just won't have an impact. So you've got to be more organised and more focused for the months before. To Albo's credit, he came out from the Christmas break absolutely on fire. He released policies around health, policies that, were strong Labor values. And so he came out from January, as you said, whereas Peter Dutton, whether it was a strategic brilliance or, as it appears on the current polling to show, a dud strategy, has left too much to be announced. I mean, I think they're on their fifth or sixth tax deduction. I can't even keep track of them, and I follow it every day. Sorry, I've got to shut up.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, because Megan Kelly's standing by and she will wait for no one.